Odira, please keep an open mind. So I went to a prayer house on Sunday, and the prophet there said some things about Nne. On the other end of the line, Odira frowned. About Nne. What do you mean? Is she okay? It's not about her health, Chako said slowly. He said, he said that Nne is doing witchcraft. That she's the reason I haven't been able to get pregnant yet. Nne lived in the village of Umokoro. She was known by everyone as a kind and gentle woman. Nne was a widow, which means her husband had died many years ago. She raised her two children, Odira and Chako, all by herself. From early morning until late at night, Nne worked very hard. She woke up before the sun rose and tied a cloth wrapper around her waist. Every day, she went to the little farm behind their mud brick house. There, she planted cassava, yams, and vegetables. From digging in the soil every day, her hands had become rough and her back often ached. But Nne did not complain. After farming, Nne would carry a basket of fresh vegetables on her head to the market. The basket was heavy, but she walked with steady steps. At the market, she smiled and greeted other women kindly. She sold green tomatoes and peppers to earn just enough money to buy food and books for her children. If the vegetables did not sell well, Nne would go from house to house in the village, hoping someone would buy a little so she could have enough to feed Odira and Chako. Many times, Nne went hungry so that Odira and Chako could eat. In the evenings, when her children were eating warm porridge or fufu with soup, Nne would pretend she had already eaten. She would say, "I am not hungry. I ate earlier," even though it was not true. She wanted to make sure her children had full bellies before bed. After dinner, she would tuck them under a thin blanket, kiss their foreheads, and pray for them to have a better future. Nne's love for Odira and Chako was as bright as the morning sun. She called them my angels and my blessings. When they got sick, she stayed up all night wiping their foreheads with a cool cloth and checking their temperature. When they were sad or scared, she told them stories and jokes until they all smiled. She did everything a mother could do to keep them safe and happy, even when she was tired or sick herself. Despite their struggles, Nne held a big dream in her heart. She hoped that one day, Odira and Chako would finish school and get a good jobs. She wanted them to succeed and live a life without the hardship she had known. Every coin she earned from selling vegetables, she saved a little for their school fees. She often told them, "Education will open doors for you. You will go farther than I ever did." At night, by the light of a small kerosene lamp, Nne helped them with their homework. Though she herself had not gone far in school, she knew how important learning was. She encouraged them to read and write. Sometimes, she traded extra vegetables for old textbooks so that Odira and Chako could study more. The other villagers saw how Nne cared for her children. They saw her strength and kindness and even nicknamed her the mother hen of Umokoro, because she protected her children like a mother hen protects her chicks. Nne would laugh softly and wave her hand humbly when people praised her. She did not think she was special. She believed she was just doing what any good mother would do. One evening, after many years of hard work and sacrifice, Odira and Chako sat with Nne outside their little house. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. A gentle breeze blew, carrying the scent of earth and cooking fires. Odira, who was the older child and now a young man, looked at his mother's worn hands and felt deep love and gratitude for all she had done. Chako, now a young woman, held Nne's hands and leaned on her shoulder. "Mother," Odira said softly, "you have suffered so much for us. Thank you for everything." Chako nodded and added, "Yes, Nne, you have been both mother and father to us. One day, when we have good jobs and plenty of money, we will take care of you. We will buy you fine clothes and a big house. You will rest and never have to work so hard again." Nne's eyes filled with warm tears, but she smiled. Those words were like music to her ears. "My children," she replied in a gentle voice, "I do not mind the work or the sacrifice. I thank God that you are growing into good people. If you take care of me when I am old, that is good. But even if you do not, seeing you both healthy and educated is reward enough for me." The children hugged Nne tightly under the colorful sky. In that moment, all the pain and hunger Nne had endured felt worth it. She believed with all her heart that her children would keep their promise. Nne looked up at the four stars appearing in the skies and whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. She felt happy and hopeful about the future as she held Odira and Chako close, like a mother hen sheltering her chicks under her wings. A few years later, Nne's dreams for her children came true. Odira and Chako finished their schooling and graduated with proud smiles on their faces. On the day of Odira's graduation, Nne traveled by bus to the town where the ceremony was held. She watched her son walk across the stage in a neat shirt and trousers to receive his certificate. Nne clapped and cried happy tears at the same time. She remembered all the days of carrying vegetables on her head and all the nights of studying by the lamp. And now, she saw those sacrifices were worth it. Her son was now a graduate. Not long after, Chako also finished her studies. She had studied accounting and soon got a good job in the city. Chako fell in love with a man from a wealthy family. He was kind to her and loved her dearly. They did not date for long before they decided to marry. At the wedding, Nne wore a new dress that Chako bought for her. It was the most beautiful dress Nne had ever owned. A soft blue lace that made her feel like a queen. As she watched Chako walk down the aisle in a white gown, Nne's heart swelled with joy. She gave her daughter's hand to the groom with a smile, proud and hopeful that Chako would have a happy home. Odira also found a good job after graduation. He got a job working in an office at a large company in another town. It was his first real job, and he was also determined to work hard and make his mother proud. When he got his first paycheck, Odira sent some money home to the village for Nne. He included a short note that said, "For the best mother in the world, love, Odira." Nne held that note and money in her hand and wept tears of joy. It was not the money that touched her heart, though it helped her buy some needed things. It was the love behind it that filled her heart with joy. With both children doing well, life became a little easier for Nne. She no longer had to worry every day about having food. Odira made sure to send money regularly, and Chako bought her mother gifts like new wrappers, shoes, and sometimes even a bag of rice or a tin of milk when she visited. Nne still went to her small farm, but now it was just to keep herself busy and share produce with neighbors. Not because she had to survive. She walked a bit straighter and smiled a bit wider these days, filled with pride in her children's success. In the beginning, Odira and Chako kept their promise to stay in touch and take care of Nne. Odira moved to the new town for his job, but he came back to the village every few weeks to visit. Each time he arrived, he hugged Nne and brought her a little something. Maybe some groceries or even a small radio so she could listen to the news and music. Chako, now living in the city with her husband, would call Nne on the phone almost every week. When Chako came to the village, she sometimes brought her husband along. They would fill Nne's kitchen with laughter and carry bags of gifts like tea, medications, or warm blankets for her. Nne was overjoyed. All her years of suffering felt worth it. In the evenings, she sat with her friends or neighbors on a wooden bench under the mango tree and proudly told them about Odira's job and Chako's new life in the city. My son works at a big company, she would say with a broad smile. My daughter is married to a good man and lives in a fine house in the city. They have not forgotten me. Nne's friends were happy for her, though a few were a little jealous. Most people in Umokoro knew how much Nne had struggled. So seeing her children become successful was like celebration for the whole village. Every night, Nne thanked God for blessing her children. She prayed for their continued success and happiness. In her heart, she felt at peace. Her children had fulfilled her deepest wish, and they still showed her love. Nne slept each night with a smile, thinking of the bright future still ahead for all of them. As the years passed, things began to change slowly. At first, Odira and Chako visited often and called as they had promised. But then life became busier for both of them. Odira in his new town met a lovely woman named Ada. They fell in love and decided to get married. Nne was overjoyed to hear that her son had found a wife. Odira brought Ada to the village to meet Nne before the wedding. Ada was polite and called Nne Mama with respect. Nne embraced her soon-to-be daughter-in-law and felt grateful that Odira would have a partner to share his life with. At the wedding in Odira's town, Nne was honored and happy, though she felt a bit sadness knowing her little boy was now a married man. After the celebration, Odira and Ada settled in the town, and Odira became even more focused on his job and his new family. Chako too had her own busy life in the city. She did very well at her job and also had many new responsibilities as a wife in a big family. In the early months of her marriage, Chako still called Nne regularly and even visited a couple of times, bringing her husband to the village. But as time went on, those calls and visits became less frequent. The city was very busy and fast-paced, and Chako often found herself caught up in one thing or another: work meetings, social events with her husband's family, or community activities. Sometimes she thought of calling her mother, but by the time she finished her task, it would be late at night, and she would promise herself to call the next day. As for Odira, after marriage and a promotion at work, he found less time to travel back to Umokoro. The journey was several hours by car or bus, and taking time off became difficult. Odira would still call Nne, but now perhaps once every 2 weeks instead of every few days. The calls were also shorter. Often, Odira sounded tired from work. Sometimes, Ada would call him from another room while he was on the phone with Nne. Then he would say, "Mama, I'll call you back later, okay?" But the days would pass, and he would forget to call back. Nne began to notice the silence. Where once her phone rang cheerfully with her children's calls, now days went by without a ring. She would wake up and check her cell phone to see if perhaps she missed a call, but there was nothing. In the evenings, Nne took to sitting on her wooden porch outside after dinner, gazing down the dusty road that led into the village. She hoped to see a familiar shape or hear the sound of Odira's laughter or Chako's voice calling, "Nne, I'm here." But the road stayed empty and quiet. Sometimes, a neighbor's motorcycle would rumble by, and Nne's heart would leap, thinking for a second that maybe Odira had borrowed a bike to surprise her. But the bike always passed her house and continued on. One afternoon, Nne swept her yard and prepared Chako's favorite meal, yam porridge with vegetables, because she had a feeling Chako might visit soon. She waited all day, but Chako did not come. The food grew cold, and eventually Nne ate alone, telling herself that maybe something important had kept Chako in the city. She carefully wrapped up the remaining food to give to a neighbor so it wouldn't go to waste. Neighbors began to notice that Odira and Chako hadn't been around in a while. One of Nne's friends, Mama Chinyere, asked gently, Nne, it's been some time since I saw Odira or Chako. Are they well? Nne forced a smile and nodded. Yes, they are fine. They are just very busy with work and family, she replied. You know how it is when children grow up. They have many things to do. Mama Chinere patted Nne's shoulder kindly. True, they have their lives, but they will come when they can, I am sure. Yes, they will, Nne said, as if trying to assure herself as well. Inside, however, Nne felt lonely and hot. She missed her children terribly. The house was too quiet without Odira's energetic chatter or Chako's bright laughter. At night, the only sound was the crickets outside and the occasional cry of a distant owl. Nne would lie awake on her bed, looking at the ceiling and wondering, did I do something wrong? Why do my children not call as much? She would shake her head and wipe her eyes, whispering to herself, no, they love me. They are just busy. Times are different now. Nne kept her hope alive. Each morning, she said a prayer for Odira and Chako. She prayed that they were safe, healthy, and happy. She asked God to guide them and to remind them of home. Whenever her phone rang, Nne would answer with joy, hoping it was one of her children. If it was, her day would brighten immediately. She never mentioned her sadness or asked why they hadn't called. Instead, she listened to their stories and updates eagerly, telling them, I am proud of you. I am fine here. Do not worry about me. In her heart, Nne believed that soon things would improve. Maybe during the next holiday or festival, Odira and Chako would both come home and the house would be full of laughter again. Holding on to that thought, Nne endured the quiet days. She tended to her garden, visited the market, and tried to stay busy. Though she felt lonely, she remained prayerful and hopeful, trusting that her children still loved her and would return to her open arms when they could. One Sunday afternoon, Chako went to a prayer house in the city with a friend. She had been feeling uneasy for some time. Despite her outward success, Chako had worries in her heart. She and her husband had been hoping for a child since they got married, but so far, they had not been blessed with one. Chako also sometimes felt a strange heaviness at home and had recently woken up from a bad dream about her mother that left her shaking. In the dream, she saw Nne standing at the foot of her bed in the dark, saying nothing but looking at her with eyes that glowed like burning coals. Chako had woken up covered in sweat, heart pounding. She tried to forget the dream, telling herself it was just a nightmare. But the uneasy feeling stayed. So when her friend invited her to a popular prayer house known for a powerful prophet, Chako agreed to go, hoping to find peace and answers. The prayer house was a simple hall with wooden benches, but it was crowded with people seeking miracles and guidance. The prophet, a middle-aged man in a shiny suit, spoke loudly and with confidence. He moved up and down the aisle, calling out people's names and their problems as if he could see into their lives. Chako watched in awe and a bit of fear as the prophet revealed details about strangers that seemed amazingly accurate. She clutched her handbag tightly, feeling nervous but hopeful that perhaps God would use this man to help her. Suddenly, the prophet pointed in Chako's direction. You, young woman, you in blue dress, he called. Chako's heart skipped a beat. She was wearing a blue dress. She raised her hand timidly, and an usher guided her to the front of the hall. Chako felt everyone's eyes on her. The prophet closed his eyes for a moment, then spoke with a dramatic, trembling voice. I see an older woman in your life. She is close to you like a mother. Chako's stomach tightened. Yes, my mother, she said in a small voice, feeling a chill go through her. Yes, the prophet exclaimed, eyes still shut as if in a vision. This woman, she appears kind on the outside, but I see darkness around her. The spirit is revealing to me that someone very close to you A woman who carried you as a baby is not what she seems. Chako began to tremble. She thought of her dream recently. Her mother's eyes in the dream had glowed with an unnatural light. The people in the prayer house murmured. The prophet continued, now opening his eyes and looking directly at Chako. My sister, do you know that there is a witch in your family? Chako gasped. Her legs felt weak. She shook her head in confusion and fear. A witch in my family? She whispered. The prophet nodded gravely. Yes, the spirit world is showing me that your own mother is involved in witchcraft. He said it plainly and with authority. She is the one behind the troubles in your life. That is why some things have not worked out for you. Chako's eyes filled with tears. She felt her heart drop as if a heavy stone had been placed there. How could it be? Her sweet mother, Nne, the one who loved and raised her. But the prophet spoke with such certainty, and he did not even know Nne. How would he invent such a thing? Chako thought. Perhaps it must be true if he could see it in the spirit. The crowd was quiet, watching Chako's reaction. The prophet put a hand on her shoulder. Do not be afraid, he said. The devil uses people, even those close to us. But God is more powerful. We will pray for you. You must be careful and prayerful. For now, do not eat or drink anything she gives you. Just be safe. Limit your contact with her until this evil is broken. And to protect yourself fully, you should join a special 3-day fast and prayer for deliverance. Chako nodded numbly, tears rolling down her cheeks. She felt both fear and sorrow. A part of her heart cried out that this couldn't be true. Nne had never shown her anything but love. But another part, the fearful part, remembered stories she had heard of witches hiding under friendly faces. And there was that terrible dreams. She was so confused and scared that she found herself believing the prophet's words. After the service, the prophet's assistant gave Chako a small bottle of holy oil and some instructions. They asked for a donation for the special prayers they promised to do on her behalf. Chako, shaking and desperate, handed over some money without question. They told her to rub a bit of the oil on her head each night and pray with all her heart against any evil attacks from her family. Chako went home that day with a heavy heart, clutching the oil and a fear she had never known before. For a few days, Chako kept this revelation to herself, unsure of how to deal with it. She avoided calling Nne, afraid she might say something she shouldn't or that she might somehow invite harm. Each time her phone rang, she jumped, worried it might be her mother. At night, she slept poorly, tossing and turning. When she did manage to fall asleep, she sometimes saw her mother's face in nightmares and woke up in terror. Finally, Chako decided she needed to talk to her brother. Surely, Odira would know what to do. One evening, she called Odira in his new town. Odira was surprised to hear from her at an odd hour. As soon as Odira picked up, Chako's shaky, hushed voice came through. Brother, something is wrong, she began. What is it, Chako? Are you all right? Odira asked, concerned in his voice. Chako took a deep breath. Odira, please, keep an open mind. So I went to a prayer house on Sunday, and the prophet there said some things about Nne. On the other end of the line, Odira frowned. About Nne? What do you mean? Is she okay? It's not about her health, Chako said slowly. He said that Nne is doing witchcraft, that she's the reason I haven't been able to get pregnant yet, and other problems. There was a heavy silence. Then Odira's voice came, firm and a bit angry. Chako, what are you saying? How can you even think that about our own mother? I don't want to think it. Chako cried, her voice breaking. But the prophet knew things. Odira, he described her. I had a dream about her being strange, and he knew without me telling him. How could he know? He said we should be careful. Odira paced in his living room as he held the phone. His wife Ada was nearby and noticed his troubled face. Chiako, listen to yourself. That man doesn't even know our mother. You think Nne, our mother, who suffered so much for us, is a witch? Is it even possible? That is impossible, Chiako. Chiako sobbed softly. I know how it sounds. I feel horrible even imagining it. But what if it is true? What if Nne has been hiding something? Remember stories in the village of mothers who were jealous of their children's success? What if? Odira cut her off, raising his voice. Stop, Chiako! You are letting fear speak. Nne is not like those women in stories. She's a good mother and a good woman. A godly woman at that. She prays for us. Ada, who had been only hearing Odira's side, touched Odira's arms and whispered, What's going on? Odira pressed the phone to his chest for a moment and whispered back to Ada. Chiako went to some prophet who said Nne is a witch. Ada's eyes widened in shock. She herself had heard of such things happening to other families. Quietly, she asked, Do you think it could be true? Odira looked at his wife in disbelief. Ada, not you too. This is my mother we are talking about. Ada bit her lip. She respected Nne, but the idea frightened her as well. I know, but sometimes these things happen, don't they? We've heard stories. I mean, do you really know everything about her? In my hometown, there was a case where a mother was holding back her son's progress with evil charms. Maybe your sister's prophet sensed something. Odira felt a chill. He had also heard such rumors and tales, but he had never imagined they could ever be linked to his own dear mother. It's not possible, he insisted, but his voice was quieter now, unsure. Doubt was creeping in, no matter how he tried to push it away. Chako heard muffled talking on Odira's side. Odira, are you still there? She asked. Yes, I'm here. Odira answered, sounding tired. He sighed deeply. Chako, I can't believe this. I don't know that prophet, but I do know our mother. Think of everything she did for us. How could she possibly wish us harm? I don't want to believe it either, Chako said softly. But the things he said, they felt true. And Ada also thinks we should be cautious just until we know more. I'm scared, Odira. I am so scared. Odira closed his eyes. His heart felt like it was being pulled into two directions. On one side was the memory of Nne's kindness and sacrifice. On the other side was the fear that maybe, just maybe, there was something dark he didn't know. He remembered how lately some things at work had gone wrong. 2 projects he handled had failed unexpectedly, and he had been feeling under the weather often. At the same time, he blamed stress. Now, Chako's words made him wonder if there was another cause. Could it be related? He shook his head, trying to clear it. Okay, Odira said at last, his voice heavy. I don't believe Nne would hurt us, but I also don't want to ignore this if you are truly frightened. So what do we do? What do you want us to do? Chako sniffled. The prophet advised me not to accept anything from her for now, and to keep some distance. I think we should do that, just for a while. Maybe we should pray on our own too, and watch, just to be sure. Odira felt sadness wash over him. The idea of keeping their loving mother at a distance felt so wrong. Just for a little while, he agreed quietly, hating the words even as he said them. Maybe until we figure out what's true. But Chiako, promise me we will not accuse her or do anything harsh without proof. She's still our mother, remember. Chiako agreed. I won't accuse her openly. I just need to be careful. I'm so afraid, Odira. After they hung up, Odira sat in silence for a long time. Ada came and sat beside him, taking his hand. My love, she said gently, I know this is hard. Maybe it's not true, but it might be wise to be careful. There is no harm in being cautious, right? Odira nodded slowly, his throat tight. Right, he murmured, just to be safe. That night, Odira found it hard to sleep. He kept seeing images from his childhood. His mother smiling at him or feeding him when he was sick. Could such a woman be really evil? He almost called Chako back to tell her this was all a big mistake. But then he remembered Chako's shaky voice and Ada's concerned eyes. They were all scared. In the end, Odira decided that maybe it was best to be safe. For now, he too would keep a careful distance from Nne until things became clearer. In the weeks that followed the prophet's revelations, Nne felt a change that she couldn't explain. Odira's and Chako's behavior towards her shifted in a way that left her puzzled and hurt. Chako, who used to call every week, suddenly stopped calling altogether. When Nne tried to call her, Chako often did not answer the phone. Once, Nne dialed Chako's number and it rang and rang without response. Another time, Chako's husband answered and said politely, Mama, Chako is a bit busy right now. She will call you back. But the return call never came. Nne was surprised. Chako had never ignored her like this before. She told herself that maybe Chako was truly busy or perhaps had traveled. Yet in her heart, a seed of worry had begun to grow. Odira too began to distance himself, though in a more subtle way. He still called occasionally, but something in his tone had changed. He sounded distracted and cautious on the phone. Their once warm conversations became brief and formal. Instead of the usual cheerful mama greeting, he spoke softly and careful. Yes ma, I'm fine, work is fine, he would say, and then quickly add, Ada is calling me, I have to go, I'll talk to you later. One weekend, Nne called Odira and suggested, my son, I was thinking of visiting you and Ada next month, just for a few days. I miss you. There was a pause on the line that went on too long. Finally, Odira cleared his throat and said, next month? I am not sure, Mama. Work is very hectic. And Ada's parents might be visiting us then. Maybe it's better you wait a bit. We will come when we have time. His words were polite, but they cut Nne like a knife. He had never hesitated to welcome her before. Feeling a lump in her throat, Nne simply replied, all right, my son, no problem. After hanging up, she sat quietly on her porch, holding the silent phone on her lap. Confusion and sadness swirling in her mind. Nne noticed other small things that made her uneasy. Chako did not invite her to the city anymore at all. In the past, Chako would sometimes ask her, Nne, why not come spend a weekend with us in the city? We can go to the market and buy you many things and you rest a bit. But now, months had passed with no such invitations. When Nne mentioned in a call with Chako's husband that she would love to see their home sometime, he grew quiet and then changed the subject. At first, Nne wondered if she had unknowingly offended her children or their spouses. She searched her memories. Had she said something wrong during her last visit? Was it something she did? She could think of nothing that would make both Odira and Chako grow cold. One evening, Nne sat with her friend Mama Chinyere outside under the moonlight. The cricket chirped as the two older women shelled melon seeds and talked. With a heavy sigh, Nne finally poured out her chest. Sister Chinyere, I am worried. Odira and Chako have been so distant lately. They hardly call. And when I call, they are in a hurry or they don't pick up. They don't want me to visit. I feel like something is wrong. Mama Chinyere, a plump woman with kind eyes, reached over and squeezed Nne's hand. Sometimes, children become selfish when they start enjoying city life. She said gently, "They forget the old mother in the village is waiting for them. I have seen it before." Nne frowned and shook her head. "Odira and Chako are not like that. They promised to take care of me. They love me. I know they do. This feels different, like they're avoiding me on purpose." Mama Chinyere clicked her tongue in sympathy. "What will you do?" "I think," Nne said slowly, "I think I should go and see Chako. Maybe she's really not well or something is truly keeping her from calling. If I see her face to face, I will know if she's alright. And if I did something wrong, she can tell me." Mama Chinyere nodded. "That might be good. Sometimes talking in person is better. Just go and see your daughter. I'm sure everything will be fine." That night, Nne made up her mind. She would go to the city to visit Chako without waiting for an invitation. Even if her daughter was busy, surely Chako would not turn her own mother away at the door. It had been so long since they spent time together. Nne yearned to hug her child and hear her laugh. The following week, Nne prepared for the journey. She harvested some fresh yams and plantains from her farm. She also gathered vegetables like okra and peppers and bought some palm oil and dried fish from the local market. These were all delicacies she knew Chako loved, and Nne wanted to bring gifts from the village. She carefully packed them in a woven basket. With each item she packed, Nne felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She told herself, "Perhaps I am worrying over nothing. When Chako sees me, she will smile and be happy. We will spend a nice time together and whatever misunderstanding is between us will melt away." Early one morning, Nne boarded a bus headed to the city. The journey was long and road bumpy. She sat squeezed between other passengers, clutching her basket of gifts tightly on her lap. As the bus left the familiar village scenery and moved towards tall buildings and busy streets, Nne's heart pounded with both hope and nervousness. She prayed silently the whole way, asking God to make the visit a good one. By the time the bus pulled into the city's main station, it was afternoon. Nne carefully got down with her basket and navigated through the noisy crowded motor park. Cars honked and people hurried by. The city was hot and full of energy. It took Nne a while, asking strangers for directions, to find a taxi that knew the address Chako had given her long ago when she first moved. Thankfully, Chako still lived in the same house in a quiet upscale neighborhood with tall gates. As the taxi drove through the neighborhood, Nne looked out at the large houses with high walls and metal gates. She felt a surge of pride that Chako lived among such fine houses. Soon the taxi stopped in front of Chako's residence. Nne paid the driver with some of the money Odira had sent earlier and stepped out. She walked to the tall black gate that separated the house from the street. Pressing a small buzzer on the gate, Nne waited eagerly. Sweat beaded on her forehead from the long journey and the nervous anticipation. She imagined Chako's surprised and joyful face when she realized her mother had come all the way to see her. Nne smiled to herself, adjusting her scarf and brushing dust from her skirt. She could hardly wait to embrace her daughter and reassure herself that everything was fine. Nne waited by the gate for a minute, and then she heard footsteps approaching from inside. To her relief, she saw Chako appear at the gate. Chako was dressed in a smart skirt and blouse, looking just as beautiful as ever. For a moment, Nne's heart leaped with joy at seeing her daughter in person after so long. "Chako, my dear," Nne called warmly, smiling wide. But Chako's face was not the bright, happy face Nne expected. Chako looked startled and uneasy. She came closer to the gate but did not immediately open it. Instead, through the bars of the gate, she managed a tense smile. "Nne, you are here," she said, her voice sounding surprised and strained. Nne nodded, still smiling, although she was a bit confused by Chako's tone. Yes, my daughter. I missed you. So I decided to come. It has been such a long time. Aren't you going to let me in? Chako hesitated. She glanced back towards the house, as if checking someone was around or perhaps gathering her courage. Slowly, she unlatched the gate and opened it just a few inches, enough to stand in the gap, but not fully. Nne noticed that Chiako did not rush to hug her. In fact, Chiako kept one hand on the gate, almost as if ready to close it quickly if needed. Nne's smile faded a little. Something was not right. She held up her basket with a little laugh. See, I brought you some things from the village, she said. Fresh yams, plantains, and your favorite dried fish. I even brought those peppers you like. Chako's eyes darted to the basket and then back to her mother's face. She swallowed hard. The prophet's warning echoed in her mind. Do not eat or drink anything she gives you. Chako felt a surge of panic. Should she take the basket? What if it was cursed? But she also saw her mother's hopeful expression and felt a stab of guilt. That's very kind, Chako said quietly. She reached out slowly and took the basket by the handle. It was heavy and full. You didn't have to bring all this, Nne. I wanted to. I know you cannot get this village food easily here, Nne replied, trying to catch Chako's eyes. She longed to hug her daughter, but Chako still stood stiffly, holding the basket between them like a shield. An awkward silence fell. Chako set the basket down by her feet, still just inside the gate. Nne noticed that Chako had not invited her in or even stepped outside fully. They were literally standing with the gate between them. Nne's voice trembled slightly as she asked, Chako, my child, is everything all right? Are you not happy to see me? Chako's eyes widened as she shook her head quickly. No, it's not that, Mama. I'm just surprised. I wasn't expecting you. She attempted another smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. If I knew you were coming, I would have prepared. I'm sorry to come without telling you, Nne said, trying to reassure her. I tried calling, but I couldn't reach you. I was so worried. I just wanted to make sure you were all right. It's been so long since we talked properly. Nne's voice was gentle, with a plea in it. I've been all right, just busy, Chako replied, avoiding eye contact. She fiddled with the gate latch nervously. Work and everything, you know. Behind Chako, from the doorway of the house, her husband appeared, drawn by the voices at the gate. He recognized Nne and gave a polite wave. Good afternoon, Mama, he called out, but he did not approach, possibly sensing the tension. Good afternoon, my son, Nne responded kindly to him, then looked back to her daughter. Chako's husband lingered a moment, then went back inside to give them privacy, though the awkwardness still hung in the air. Nne took a small step forward, hoping to encourage Chako to open the gate wider. Chako, may I come in and sit for a while? I won't take much of your time. I just came to see you and know how you are doing. Chako's fingers tightened on the gate. Fear and conflict battled inside her. She remembered the prophet's stern advice to limit contact. But this was her mother, looking at her with hopeful, loving eyes. Chako's throat felt dry. She thought about lying, saying maybe she was on her way out to an appointment, but it was obvious she was home. Chako stammered. I wish I could invite you in, but the house is a bit messy and I'm actually getting ready to go somewhere with my husband. She lied. It's not a good time, Mama. Nne felt as if a cold wind had just blown through her. Even in the warm afternoon, she lowered her hand slowly. Her eyes searched Chako's face for some sign of warmth, some sign that her daughter did not want her there. Nne's voice became very soft. Chako, my dear, have I done something to upset you? If I have, please tell me. I feel like you are pushing me away. You and your brother, you both, I don't understand you anymore. I don't know why. At this, Chako's composure cracked a little. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back quickly. No, Mama, you haven't done anything, she said, her voice tight. It's nothing personal. I'm just busy. And things are complicated. But everything is fine. Everything was not fine. Both of them knew it, but neither could say it openly. Nne felt tears gathering in her own eyes now. She realized that Chako was truly not going to let her inside. Her own daughter was standing there, keeping a gate between them. The realization pierced Nne's heart. Nne straightened, trying to maintain her dignity. She didn't want to cry in front of Chako. With a trembling smile that was even sadder than a frown, she said, "All right, I understand. You have your life and you are busy. I won't stay. I just wanted to see you and bring you these things. Make sure you cook the yams well. They are from a new harvest and should be very tasty." Chako bit her lip and nodded. "Thank you, Mama," she said quietly. How is everything in the village?" Nne answered softly. "Everything is fine. The village is fine. I am fine." That last sentence was a lie. She was not fine, but she hid it as best as she could. "Adira is well too, I suppose," she added gently, hoping maybe Chako would offer some explanation for the distance. Chako wiped the corner of one eye quickly and replied, "Yes, he is fine. We spoke recently." She paused, then said, "Mama, perhaps it would be best if you go back today, before it gets too late. The last bus to the village leaves in a couple of hours. You shouldn't miss it." It sounded like Chako was eager to have her leave. Nne felt as if her heart was breaking, piece by piece. She nodded slowly. "Yes, you are right. I should get going so I am not traveling in the dark." Chako finally opened the gate wider, but only to set forward and give Nne a quick stiff hug. It was the lightest embrace Nne had ever received from her daughter, as if Chako was afraid to hold her too closely. Still, Nne closed her eyes and savored even that brief contact. She wished it could last longer. "Take care, Mama," Chako said, stepping back quickly. Nne managed to say, "Take care, my daughter. I love you." As she turned to go, her voice cracking on the last words, Chako watched her mother walk back to the waiting taxi. She wanted to say "I love you" back, but the words caught in her throat. Guilt and fear weighed on her heavily. Nne looked over her shoulder one last time and lifted a hand in farewell. Chako raised hers as well, tears now spilling down her cheeks once her mother had turned away. As the taxi drove off with Nne inside, Chako picked up the basket of food. She stood there, uncertain, her heart aching painfully. Nne sat in the taxi as it pulled away, finally allowing her tears to flow freely. She did not care that the taxi driver could see her cry. Her chest felt tight with hurt. Nne could not understand what had just happened fully. All she knew was that her daughter, her own child, had kept her outside the home she was always welcome in. It felt like a door had been shut on her, not just the physical gate, but the door to Chako's heart. The long bus ride back to the village that evening was one of the saddest journeys of Nne's life. She stared out the window, clutching her now empty basket, replaying the scene over and over. She wondered again and again, why? Why would Chako treat me this way? What has changed her heart against me? By the time Nne reached Umokoro late that night, she was exhausted, both physical and emotional. The moon was high and the village quiet as she trudged back to her house. She saw a light in Mama Chinyere's home next door. Despite the hour, Mama Chinyere had waited up, worried about her friend. Nne didn't even have to explain much when she entered Chinyere's small parlor. One look at Nne's tear-streaked face and slumped shoulders told the story. "Oh, Nne," Mama Chinyere said, opening her arms. At that invitation, Nne broke down completely. She fell into her friend's arms and wept like a child. Deep heartbreaking sobs racked her body. In between cries, she choked out. She she wouldn't let me in. Chako wouldn't let me into her house. Mama Chinyere rubbed Nne's back and guided her to sit down. So, it's true, she murmured sadly. She had hoped Nne's fears were unfounded, but seeing this confirmed the worst. For a long time, Nne cried in her friend's embrace. Mama Chinyere whispered soothing words. It's all right, let it out. They don't know what they are doing. They're. Eventually, Nne's sobs turned into quiet sniffles. She pulled out a handkerchief and wiped her face. I don't understand, Chinyere, Nne said in a hoarse whisper. What did I do? Why would my own children shut me out like this? Mama Chinyere shook her head, anger flashing in her eyes on Nne's behalf. My dear, you did nothing wrong. Sometimes when children get influenced by strange ideas or people, they can hurt even those they love. It must be something like that. Maybe someone told them something, or they have taken bad advice. This is not your fault. Nne looked at her friend, eyes swollen from crying. It hurt so much, she admitted. I never thought, never in my worst dream, that my children would treat me this way. Mama Chinyere sighed. I held Nne's hand. I know, my dear sister. You have been nothing but good to them. Whatever is going on, I pray it passes soon. Just remember, God sees your heart. Keep praying for them. Nne nodded weakly. She was too drained to say more. After a cup of warm tea that Chinyere insisted she drink, Nne walked slowly back to her empty house. That night, she barely slept at all. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling in darkness, tears rolling silently from the corners of her eyes. Every part of her ached with sorrow and confusion. She could still feel the cold way Chako had hugged her, and the image of that partially opened gate stood in her mind as a symbol of the distance now between her and her children. After the painful visit to Chako's home, Nne was never quite the same. She returned to her daily routines in the village, but those who knew her could see the change. The once energetic and hopeful woman now moved more slowly, as if carrying an invisible burden. She became thin, as she often had little appetite. Food tasted like nothing to her, and some nights she only nibbled on a bit of garri or sipped some tea before going to bed. Sleep did not come easily. Her mind replayed memories of happier times and the upsetting question of why her children had turned away. Her friend Chinyere checked on her every day, bringing her soup or helping her fetch water. Nne tried to smile and thank her, but even her smiles were weaker than before. When Chinyere commented that Nne looked thin, Nne just shrugged and said softly, I am not very hungry these days, that's all. Word slowly spread around the village that something was wrong in Nne's family. Neighbors had noticed that Odira and Chako had not visited in a long time. A few had seen Nne return from the city in tears that night. Leaning on Mama Chinyere, it didn't take long for gossip to start. One afternoon, two women were chatting at the village market under the big mango tree. It's strange, isn't it? Said one woman named Uju in a hushed tone. Nne's children are both successful, yet they haven't come home in ages. And I heard Chako turned her away at the door when she visited. The other woman, Ngozi, gasped. Turned her away? She? What could cause a child to do that to her own mother? Uju leaned in, lowering her voice further. I don't know, but people are saying perhaps Nne is involved in something evil. You know, witchcraft. She raised her eyebrows meaningfully. Why else would well-brought-up children abandon their mother? Maybe they discovered something about her. Ngozi shook her head uncertainly. But Nne has always seemed so kind. She doesn't behave like a witch. Uju clicked her tongue. Who can tell? These things sometimes hide under smiles. Remember that story of the old woman in the next village? Her children accused her of being a witch because their fortune started failing. They kicked her out. Perhaps it's like that. Unknown to these women, Mama Chinyere was nearby at her own vegetable stall and overheard their harsh whispers. She stepped out from behind, unable to contain her anger. You both should be ashamed, she scolded them, startling Uju and Ngozi. How can you sit here and speak such hurtful lies about me? She has lived among us all these years, and you know the kind of woman she is. Have you ever seen her do or harm anyone? She has helped many of us, even giving food when she had little. And now, because her children are misbehaving, you jump to call her a witch. Uju and Ngozi exchanged embarrassed glances. We were just talking, Ngozi mumbled, looking away. Well, stop it, Mama Chinyere said sharply. Instead of gossiping, maybe pray for her. She is suffering enough. Chastised, the two women fell silent and soon dispersed. But the seed of rumor had already been planted in the village. Despite Chinyere's defense, whispers continued in quiet corners. Some people avoided walking too close to Nne's house in the evenings, just in case the gossip was true. Others would look at Nne with pity or suspicion when she went to the market. A once friendly neighbor now hurried her children inside if Nne came by, fearful of what she might be. Nne was aware of the gossip. She could feel the change in how people treated her, even if few said anything to her face. One day, as she stepped outside to sweep front of her yard, she overheard a snippet of conversation from two passing villagers. That is the woman whose own children think she's a witch. One muttered. The words got into Nne and she dropped her broom, her hands shaking. Instead of confronting them, Nne bent down, picked up her broom, and quietly retreated back into her house. Tears burning in her eyes, she closed her door and sat alone in the silent room that once echoed with her children's laughter. For a moment, hot anger flashed in her heart. Anger at the unjust rumors, at the prophet who poisoned Chako's mind. Maybe even a flicker of anger at her children for believing such things. But as quickly as it came, the anger melted into sorrow. Nne knelt by her bedside, tears spilling onto her worn wooden floor. In a trembling voice, she prayed, God, you see my heart. You know I am not a witch. Please, vindicate me in your time. And please, touch the hearts of my children. They are good children, but they have been misled. Do not hold this against them. Lord, do not punish them for hurting me. Just bring them back to me when it is your will. Every day, Nne prayed like this, choosing not to curse or blame Odira and Chako. Even though she was deeply hurt, her love for them remained. In her loneliness, she talked to God as if he were her closest friend. And when the tears fell and the pain felt too great to bear, Nne would remind herself of the good memories of little Odira running to her with a drawing from school, or of young Chako braiding Nne's hair on a sunny afternoon. Those memories were like small lights in her darkness. Still, as the weeks went by, the weight of the situation took its toll. Nne's health began to falter under the strain of heartbreak and shame. She caught a fever one rainy evening but refused to go to the clinic, brushing it off as a cold. She continued to work in her garden and go to the market, but with less energy. More than once, her friend Chinyere found her friend sitting in a chair staring at the wall, not having touched the food left for her in the morning. Nne, you must eat now, Chinyere would urge. You will fall ill if you continue like this. Nne would only sigh and say, don't worry, I'll be okay, even though she knew she felt weaker by the day. The rains came late that year, and with them brought chilly nights. Nne started coughing at night, a deep cough that rattled her thin frame. Chinyere insisted on bringing a local herb mixture to help, and Nne drank it to calm her friend's worries. But truly, Nne sometimes wondered if it even mattered. A part of her spirit felt broken, and she had little will to complain or seek help for herself. Through all this, she never uttered a single curse or hateful words about Odira or Chako. When other villagers muted that those children were ungrateful or cruel, Nne would defend them softly, saying, "They are good children. They are just busy or confused. I pray that they will be all right." This would often leave the gossipers even more puzzled. They wondered how a mother could be so kind to children who seemingly abandoned her. In her heart, Nne knew why. Her love for them was unconditional. No matter what, they were her children. Even if the world called her a witch or a cursed woman, even if she died of heartbreak, she would never harm them or wish them ill. So each day, she carried on, one painful step at a time, hoping against hope that eventually the truth would come to light and she would have her family back. One grey morning, as a light drizzle fell over Umokoro, the weight of Nne's sorrow finally pressed her down completely. Nne had been awake most of the night with coughing and fever, but she still tried to sweep her front yard at dawn out of habit. Wrapped in a threadbare shawl and moved slowly with the broom, the world around her seemed to tilt. She felt dizzy and weak. Before she could call out for help, Nne collapsed onto the damp ground beside her house. Luckily, her friend Chinyere came by shortly after to bring Nne some hot porridge and medicine. She found Nne lying unconscious in the mud. Panic surged in Chinyere's chest. "Help! Somebody help!" she shouted. Neighbors came running, among them a tall young man named David. David was a university student who was back in the village on break. Years ago, when he was just a poor schoolboy, Nne had helped pay his school exam fees when his parents could not. She often tutored him in the evenings by lantern light alongside her own children. David never forgot her kindness. When he heard Mama Chinyere shout, he sprinted over immediately. Together, David and another man carefully lifted Nne into a wheelbarrow. Since no car was immediately available, Mama Chinyere held Nne's hand and spoke to her even though Nne's eyes were closed and her body limp. "Hang on, Nne, hang on," she urged, tears in her eyes. They pushed the wheelbarrow as gently as possible over the bumpy path to the small local clinic. The village clinic was a simple building with a few beds. The nurse on duty, a middle-aged man named Emeka, quickly helped get Nne onto a bed. He checked her pulse and her temperature, frowning with concern. "Her fever is very high," he said, "and she is very weak. What happened?" "She collapsed," Chinyere explained, twisting her hands in worry. "She's been under a lot of stress and she had a bad cough." The nurse nodded and started an IV drip to get fluids into Nne's body. He gave her an injection to help bring down her fever. Nne remained unconscious, breathing shallowly. Mama Chinyere sat by her bedside, silently praying and holding Nne's hand. David stood near the door, his heart pounding. After what felt like an eternity, but was only an hour, Nne opened her eyes slightly. Her vision was blurry, and she felt confused. She saw Chinyere's face and tried to speak, but only a croak came out. "Don't try to talk," the nurse said gently. "You are in the clinic. You fainted, but you'll be all right, Mama. Just rest." Nne closed her eyes again. In her hazy mind, she wondered if her children would know if she died. The thought floated sadly in her mind before she drifted into a light sleep. Meanwhile, Mama Chinyere turned to David. "We need to contact her children," she said firmly. "They should know their mother is in this state. Do you have any way to reach them?" David nodded. "Yes, Auntie. I have Odira's phone number." Nne had me keep it when I was helping her with her phone last year. David pulled out his mobile phone, hand slightly shaking. He stepped outside the clinic to make the call as the rain pattered around. In the city, Odira was at his office desk, staring at a spreadsheet but not really working. Ever since that difficult call with Chako about their mother, he had felt guilty and worried every single day. He hadn't spoken to Nne in weeks now, and every day it weighed on him. Ada had tried to comfort him, saying that after some prayers, they would reconcile with Nne. But Odira's heart was heavy. He missed his mother terribly. His phone rang, jolting him from his thoughts. The number was not saved in his phone. With a mix of hope and fear, he answered, "Hello? Brother Odira, it's me, David, from the village," said the voice. Odira sat up straighter. "David, is everything all right? Why are you calling from the village?" David took a deep breath. "It's about your mother, Nne. She collapsed this morning. We brought her to the clinic. She's in a very bad condition." Odira felt as if the floor had dropped from under him. "Mama is in the clinic? Collapsed?" he repeated, his voice rising with panic. "What happened to her? Is she okay?" "She's very weak, sir," David replied, keeping his voice calm, though his whole heart was racing. "She has been sick and under stress. The nurse says her condition is serious. Auntie Chinyere said we should call you and Chako. Mama needs you." By now, Odira's hands were trembling. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" he muttered. Ada, who was nearby, rushed over, seeing his face drain of color. "What is it?" Ada asked anxiously. Odira looked at his wife, eyes wide with fear. "It's my mother. She's collapsed and is in the hospital. It sounds bad." On the phone, David added gently, "Brother, please come quickly if you can." I will, Odira said immediately. "Thank you for calling me, David. I will come as soon as possible." "Have you told Chako?" "I'm going to call her next," David assured him. Odira hung up, his heart hammering in his chest. He felt a rush of emotions all at once. Terror that he might lose his mother, guilt for not being there this past month, and a desperate urgency to see her. Ada placed a hand on his shoulder. "We have to go to the village," she said, already moving to grab a coat. "We should leave today." Odira shook his head, feeling tears in his eyes. The last bus might have left by now, and driving at night in the rain is dangerous. "We will leave first thing tomorrow morning at dawn." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated and scared. I just hope she holds on until we get there." Ada embraced her husband tightly. "She will. She's strong. We will get there in time," she whispered, though she herself was frightened by the look on Odira's face. Meanwhile, in Chako's city home, Chako was sitting on her sofa, staring at the television without really watching it. Her mind was heavy with regret. Ever since she turned her mother away at the gate, Chako had been miserable. The food Nne brought was still untouched in the kitchen because Chako couldn't bear to throw it or to eat it. Every time she saw that basket, guilt stabbed at her. She had nightmares frequently and would wake up crying, wishing she could undo that day. Her husband tried to console her, saying that maybe they should invite Nne for a visit soon and smooth things over. Prophet or no prophet, Chako had been seriously considering it. The prophet's word that once seemed so convincing now felt uncertain and meaningless in the face of how much she missed her mother. When Chako's phone began to ring, she picked it up from the table and saw David's number. Her heart skipped. Why would David be calling? She answered quickly. "Hello, David, how are you?" "Auntie Chako," David said on the other end, sounding formal but worried. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I have some news about your mother." Chako's throat went dry. "My mother? Is she all right?" David wasted no time. She collapsed this morning and we brought her to the clinic. She's in a bad condition. I called Odira already. I think you and your brother should come as soon as you can. Chako felt like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Her vision blurred with tears instantly. No, no, she whispered. Her husband, hearing this, quickly moved to her side and put an arm around her. Mama is in the clinic? Chako managed to ask. Yes, David said gently. She fainted and has been very sick. Please come, Auntie. She needs you. I'll come right away, Chako said in a broken voice. Thank you, David. She ended the call and let the phone fall from her hand onto the couch. For a moment, Chako covered her face with her hands, overcome by sobs. Her husband hugged her, feeling her pain but unsure what had happened. Between sobs, Chako explained, It's my mother. She collapsed. I have to go to the village. I have to see her. Of course, her husband said immediately. We will go. I will drive you first thing in the morning. Chako stood up, wiping her eyes, then hurried to her bedroom to pack. Her hand shook as she threw a few clothes into a travel bag. She pulled out a shawl Nne had given her long ago, pressing it to her face as fresh tears flowed. Please be okay, Mama. Please hold on, she whispered to herself. That night was a long and restless one for both Odira and Chako. In their separate homes, brother and sister each lay awake, hearts pounding with worry and regret. Odira sat on his bed, a packed bag at his feet, and prayed quietly, God, please, let my mother live. Please let me reach her in time. I need to tell her I'm sorry. I need to make things right. Ada sat beside him, holding his hand, sharing his anxiety. In the city, Chako also prayed through her tears. Dear God, I know I listened to lies. I just want my mother to be okay. I want to beg her for forgiveness and take care of her like I promised. Please, God, don't let it be too late. As the first light of dawn crept into the sky, two separate cars set off toward Umokoro, one carrying Odira and Ada, and the other carrying Chako and her husband. Both vehicles raced against time and fate, carrying children filled with heavy hearts and desperate hopes, all headed for one destination, back to the mother they had shunned, prayed it wasn't too late to make amends. The road to Omokoro had never felt as long as it did that morning. By the time Odira and Chako arrived at the small village clinic, the sun was already high in the sky. Both siblings stepped out of their respective cars almost at the same time, rushing towards the clinic entrance. Ada and Chako's husband followed behind, their faces etched with concern. Inside the modest clinic, Nne lay on a narrow bed. Her skin looked pale and her breathing was shallow. Despite the IV drip and the nurse's efforts, Nne had grown weaker through the night. Chinyere, her friend, sat by her side, gently dabbing Nne's forehead with a cool cloth. David stood near the foot of the bed, silently watching over her. When Odira and Chako burst into the room, both nearly out of breath, Mama Chinyere stood up in surprise. Odira, Chako, she exclaimed, relief evident in her voice that they had come. At the sound of her children's names, Nne's eyes fluttered open. It took a moment for her gaze to focus. When she saw Odira and Chako standing at the door, tears streaming down their faces, a weak smile formed on her cracked lips. Odira, Chako, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Mama, Odira choked out. He hurried to one side of the bed and gently took his mother's hand in both of his. Chako mirrored him on the other side, carefully cradling Nne's other hand. Both children were trembling, trying to hold back sobs for their mother's sake. Seeing them up close, Nne could hardly believe they were real. She had dreamed of this moment for a long time, and here they were, her eyes filled with tears, which slowly trickled down her temples onto the pillow. My children, you came, she breathed. Chako could not contain herself. She lowered her head to Nne's hand, sobbing openly. Mama, I'm sorry, she cried. I am so sorry. Odira's face was wet with tears as well. He gently stroked Nne's arm. Mama, please forgive us, he begged, voice shaking. We were foolish. We listened to terrible lies. We hurt you, and we have no excuse. I'm sorry. I am sorry. Nne's frail fingers moved, giving Odira's hand a light squeeze. She mustered all her remaining strength to speak, though each word was soft and slow. Ah, my children, don't cry, she whispered. Ada and Chako's husband quietly stepped out of the room along with David to give the family privacy. Mama Chinyere remained just outside the door, silently praying for this reunion. Inside, Chako lifted her head, wiping her eyes hastily. Mama, we didn't mean to abandon you, she said, her voice cracking. I was deceived by that prophet. I was scared, and I made a horrible mistake. Please, can you ever forgive me? Nne's eyes, though heavy, held nothing but love as she looked at her daughter. Chako, my dear, I forgave you the moment it happened, she whispered between gentle breaths. I never held anything against you or Odira. Odira bent his head, a sob escaping his throat. We don't deserve your forgiveness, Mama, he said. We wronged you. We allowed fear to make us turn our backs on the best mother in the world. Nne's lips curved in a faint smile again. Hush, my son, she murmured. I know your heart. I know. You always loved me. We all fell to fear. It's all right. Chako leaned closer, tears dripping onto the bed sheets. We love you so much, Mama, she said. We promised to take care of you and we failed. Please, give us a chance. Another chance. We will make it up to you. We will take you to a big hospital. You will get better. And we will make you so happy. We will never leave you alone again. Nne looked at her daughter tenderly. With her weak hand, she tried to reach up towards Chako's face. Chako helped by leaning in, and Nne managed to touch Chako's cheeks lightly. My beautiful girl, Nne whispered, don't cry. I have always known your heart. You thought you were protecting yourselves. I am sorry you were so afraid. Odira gently squeezed her other hand. Mama, save your strength. We are here now. We will get you well. The doctor will help you more. Or we can move you to the city hospital. Nne slowly shook her head on the pillow. She could feel the life slipping out of her like the tide receding from the shore. Listen to me, Odira and Chako, she said, her voice suddenly a little clearer as she put all her heart into it. I am so happy to see you both. That is enough for me. Mama, don't talk like that, Chako pleaded, fresh tears spilling. Nne continued, her eyes shining with a mix of joy and sadness. I am an old woman, and I am tired. God has been good to me, to let me see my children here by my side again. She paused to catch her breath. Each inhale was a struggle, but she pressed on. Promise me that you two will love each other and support each other. No matter what anyone says, no matter what fear comes, hold on to each other and take care of your families and my grandchildren when they come. Odira nodded desperately. We promise, Mama. We promise. Chako was weeping. I promise, Mama. I promise. Nne gave a slight nod, a peaceful look coming over her face. You have made me so proud, she said softly. Both of you. Don't carry any guilt. I know you love me, and I love you more than anything. By now, the nurse had stepped in quietly to check the monitors. and Mama Chinyere peeked through the doorway. They could all sense the end was near, but they let the family have their moment. Odira bent down, bringing his forehead to Nne's hand. "We love you, Mama," he whispered. Chako kissed Nne's other hand gently. "With all our hearts, we love you." Nne's eyes were closing again, slowly. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but it was a tear of bittersweet happiness. Her children were with her. That was all she had ever wanted. Summoning one last effort, she opened her eyes one more time to look at them. "Odira, Chako," she said, their names full of love. "I am at peace." With that, Nne exhaled a long soft breath. Her hand went limp in Odira's grasp. The room seemed to fall utterly silent. Odira felt his mother's finger relax and he looked up quickly. "Mama," he whispered. Chako noticed Nne's chest was no longer rising and falling. "Mama, Mama," Chako cried, a note of panic in her voice. She lightly shook Nne's arm, but Nne did not respond or open her eyes. The nurse stepped forward and gently placed his fingers on Nne's neck, checking for a pulse. Then over her heart. After a moment, he looked at the family with sorrow in his eyes and gave a slight shake of his head. "No, no, no, no!" Odira cried out, his voice breaking as reality hit him. He clutched his mother's hand as if trying to will her back to life. Chako let out a wail of grief and collapsed onto Nne's still form, sobbing uncontrollably. Mama Chinyere rushed in now, tears flowing freely down her face as well. Ada and Chako's husband, hearing the cries, also came into the room quietly and stood in respect, their faces grave and hearts heavy. Odira leaned forward and hugged his mother's lifeless body, his shoulders shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry, Mama, I am sorry," he kept repeating, his voice muffled and choked. Chako could only cry, "Mama, Mama, please, Mama, please," even though she knew in her heart that Nne had left this world. The small clinic room was filled with the sound of grief, the raw, painful cries of a son and daughter who had lost their beloved mother, and with her, the chance to fully make amends. Nne's face, however, looked peaceful. In those final moments, she had seen her children united again by her side, and she had left them with forgiveness and love. Outside the clinic, the afternoon sun continued to shine warmly over the village, indifferent to the tragedy that had occurred. But inside, a great light, the gentle soul of Nne, had gone out, leaving those who remained in deep sorrow. 3 days later, the village of Umokoro gathered to lay Nne to rest. The news of her passing had spread quickly, and the tragedy of her story touched everyone. People came from near and far, neighbors, distant relatives, and even strangers who had heard of the loving mother who was wronged. Odira and Chako, filled with grief and remorse, organized a burial that showed their mother the honor and love she deserved. The sun shone gently that day, and a soft breeze carried the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers. Under a large odala tree, next to Nne's house, a canopy was set up and chairs were laid out. Nne's coffin, made of polished wood and adorned with a simple white cloth, lay at the front. A pastor led the service, his voice solemn as he spoke about Nne's kindness, her dedication to her children, and the pain she endured. Mama Chinyere sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. David stood beside her, holding a piece of paper nervously. Odira and Chako sat together, their spouses beside them, as the pastor invited anyone who had something to say about Nne to speak. Several villagers stood up to share memories. One elderly man recalled how Nne had cared for his wife during an illness, bringing meals every evening. A woman from the market remembered how Nne would give her extra vegetable for free when sales were bad. Each story painted the picture of a woman who gave all she had for others, never asking anything in return. Finally, the pastor said, "David, you have a letter to share." David nodded and walked slowly to the front, unfolding the paper in his hands. His voice trembled as he began to read the tribute he had written. "I have known Nne since I was a little boy. When my own parents could not afford my school exam fees, it was Nne who stepped in quietly to help. Even though she had very little herself, she tutored me and treated me like her own child. I am one of many she had helped without any praise or reward. She did it out of the goodness of her heart." Nne was not just Odira and Chako's mother. In many ways, she was a mother to our whole community. She worked hard, loved deeply, and lived humbly. Even when she was hurt and in pain, she did not speak ill of anyone. Not once did I hear her curse or complain about her children, even when she had cause to. Instead, she prayed for them and for all of us too. Some called Nne a witch. That word nearly destroyed her family. But I stand here to tell you the truth that everyone who truly knows her already knows. She was no witch, she was only love. All she ever wanted was to see her children and her community happy. Her life is a lesson to us all about the power of a mother's love and the dangers of false accusations. Today, as we say goodbye to her, let us remember Nne for what she really was. A light in this village, a loving mother, and a kind soul. Let us also learn from what happened to her. Fear and lies tore apart a beautiful family and brought so much sorrow. We must not allow such things to happen again. We must stand up against gossip and those who spread falsehood for personal gain. And we must hold on to love and truth, just as Nne held on to her love for her children until her last breath. Rest in peace, Nne. You will be missed, but your love will live in our hearts forever. By the time David finished reading, there was not a dry eye under the canopy. Soft sobs and sniffles could be heard among the gathered crowd. Odira and Chako were crying openly. Chako leaned on Odira, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders to comfort her. After the letter, Odira and Chako themselves stood up. Through tears, Odira addressed the people, his voice cracking but determined. "Thank you all for being here to honor our mother," he said. "We want to say this clearly to everyone. Our mother was a good woman. We allowed fear and the words of a false prophet to blind us, and we will regret that for the rest of our lives. We hope that others will not make the same mistakes we made." Chako nodded, wiping her face. In a trembling voice, she added, "If you ever hear someone accuse a loving parent or anyone close to you of something so terrible, please do not believe it blindly like that, just like we did. Take the time to seek the truth. We lost precious moments with our mother because we listened to a lie. We pray no other family suffers what we have suffered." There was a murmur of agreement and understanding from the crowd. Many villagers had suspected or heard piece of what had happened. Hearing Chako and Odira speak so plainly about it felt like a warning bell ringing through the community. Be careful who you trust, and do not let superstition overcome love. With that, the pastor led the congregation in a final hymn and prayer. Then Nne's coffin was carried to the graveside under the Odala tree. Odira and Chako each threw a handful of red earth onto the coffin as it was lowered. Their faces contorted in grief. Ada held Odira's arm, and Chako's husband held hers, supporting them as they said their final goodbye to Nne's earthly form. When the burial was done, people slowly dispersed, speaking in hushed tones about the emotional service and the lessons learned. Mama Chinyere stayed until the end, hugging Odira and Chako tightly before leaving and telling them She knew you loved her. She always knew. Finally, only Odiria, Chako, and their spouses remained at the graveside, along with David, who stood at a respectful distance. The late afternoon sun filtered golden light through the leaves of the Odala tree, speckling the ground where the fresh mold of earth lay. Odira placed a small bouquet of white flowers on the grave, flowers Nne used to like picking from the roadside. Chiako gently ran her fingers over the wooden markers with Nne's name as tears slid down her cheeks. "We will make sure your story is never forgotten, Mama," Odira said softly, gazing at the grave. "Your suffering will save others from the same fate." Chiako took a shaky breath and added, "We will honor your memory by doing good. We won't let fear rule our hearts again." Odira put his arm around his sister. They stood together in the silence for a long moment. In their hearts, they made a solemn vow to carry forward the love and forgiveness their mother had shown, and to fight against the kind of fear and falsehood that had hurt their family. As they turned to leave, Odira looked at Chako and managed a small sad smile. "We still have each other," he said. Chako nodded and leaned against her brother. "Yes, and we have our own families to love and protect. Mama would want us to stick together and live without fear." Walking away from Nne's grave, the family felt a strange mix of deep sadness and calm resolve. They could almost sense Nne's spirit watching over them, pleased that at last her children were united in understanding and love. In the days that followed, the story of Nne, the mother they had once in fear called a witch, spread through neighboring villages and towns. People spoke of how unfounded fear and the words of a greedy false prophet had nearly destroyed a family. Many took the lesson to heart. Fear can indeed destroy love, but truth and forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds. Odira and Chako made it part of their life's mission to warn others about deceitful prophets who use God's name for profit and spread fear. They donated some of their earnings to organizations that educated communities about false accusations and supported elderly women who had been cast out by their families. In doing this, they found a measure of peace. Though Nne was gone, her legacy lived on. It lived in the hearts of her children, who would never forget the final gift of love and forgiveness she gave them. It lived in David and others she had helped, inspiring them to be kind. And perhaps, most importantly, her story becomes a guiding light that helped other families cling to love and truth over fear and lies. And so, the tale of Nne, the mother they called a witch, ended not just in sorrow, but in wisdom and hope for everyone who heard it. The most important lesson in the story is that never let fear, rumors, or fake prophets destroy your love for your parents. A mother's heart is full of sacrifice, not evil. When you allow lies to blind your eyes, you may only see the truth when it is too late. True love listens, forgives, and protects. A stranger may lie for gain, but a mother's pain is real. Honor your parents while they are still alive, because regret cannot hug a grave. And to those fake pastors and prophets, stop using the name of God to destroy families. God is love, not confusion. If your words bring hatred, you are not speaking for Him. Life is short, and love is too precious to throw away because of lies. If someone tells you your mother or your father is evil, look again. Check your heart. Check her actions or his actions. Many mothers and fathers are suffering in silence because of fake pastors and prophets. Please, don't wait until it is too late to say I'm sorry. Give your parents love while they are alive, because one day you may cry, but they will no longer hear you. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, And may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.